and try to set a really positive intention to use your time well based on your reason for being here. So if you're curious, then that you'll try to listen, so that you can examine the words later. Just want to touch with our weekly Dharma shot. What's really wonderful about community is that you don't have to do anything except show up. That's really it. It's like, okay, really a support. When you think about people who have an interest in Buddhism and you think about the country we live in, there are not a lot of people out there that you can connect with, about your spiritual path. And so it makes the Dharma community even more vital to your practice, because it's, like one of the things I really liked about living in a nuns community was it was not weird that I was obsessive about the Dharma because everybody I lived with also was that way. It was very nice to just be surrounded by people who didn't think exactly the same way, and that wanted to talk about the Dharma all day long too. So so it's nice to be able to touch base with people who are trying to understand the same kind of teachings on a spiritual path. And so just like your mere presence helps the others in this room, time well, combine it with that wish that it will benefit those around you, that will benefit, and then it just ripples out like a stone that's tossed in a lake. So let's first cite the four measurables. And it's also on the screen for those who have good eyesight. Can you, it's a, yeah, it's a little too large for our screen. There we go. Thank you. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So this line, we don't always, I'm making that up. So, but it's good when you're saying prayers to at least pause a moment. Like we say refuge 3 times because nobody's pausing. I mean, not, but it's really helpful if we just pause briefly so that the words go beyond just your mouth saying them, but maybe goes to your mind, more internal. So you want to think about how, we people we care about, that we like, and we're just trying to expand that out a little bit more to everybody. we're repeating this. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Now the mind of compassion. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Now, the mind, all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And the mind of equanimity, which is the foundation for all the practices. All free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Once again, we'll recite the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer for those who are comfortable reciting it. It's on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, the current title of the Sunday teachings is The Two Wings of the Bird. It's a common expression that we use to get to enlightenment that you need. Often it's translated as or compassion and wisdom. But you can also use the word method wisdom. It's skillful means developing all our good qualities. And also you could look at it as the collection of merit, which is what merit is just the term for the karmic results of our positive actions. And the two collections of merit and wisdom. So we've talked a lot lately about, the mind of compassion, and also what kind of actions are develop skillful means like generosity and patience and that's my favorite one to skip, concentration and ethics. That's not in order. So if it was enough to just develop, these good qualities that we have the basis for, everybody has these, states of mind. The difference is we want to develop equanimity to the point where we feel this way and we will act this way towards every sentient being that we come across, that we will not be biased in our towards others, and as well as our physical attentions and our speech, so that we can be patient with anybody we meet, so that we, or at least we wish to be patient with anybody we meet. So, if we do just that, we will create a session of good rebirths, but we won't get out of samsara. We won't end suffering, because you need wisdom to do that. And to do any of these actions, like generosity, you need some wisdom, to do and talk about in compassion, that what is exactly compassion? You know, that sometimes you think something might be compassionate and then you realize actually it's not for this person in this particular moment, you know, that it's actually, what do you call it? Enabling. I don't know, whatever the current phrase is, but it's, you know, but it's not actual compassion, because compassion is the wish that someone's free of suffering, and that perhaps, you know, unless you're firm with someone about that their actions are hurting them and others, to the fact that they need to do something differently, you know. So in practicing any of our anything really, you need wisdom with it. So everyday wisdom in Buddhism refers a lot to understanding cause and effect. You know, that if we understand karma, the law of cause and effect, then we will, it's more than understand karma. When we actually exist, that's a natural way to stop negative actions of body, speech, and mind, because you know it's going to create inference on the mind stream or seeds on the mind stream that are going to ripen as negative things for ourselves. But most of us just have a, like, we certainly believe in karma when good stuff happens. Oh yeah, I'm created the cause for that. I can buy that. You know, no problem, no problem. And sometimes when we do something, you know, we're not too surprised by that either, because we have some wisdom about knowing what actions, you know, we should give up, which ones cause harm, you know, things like that. But we feel like a lot of life is random, you know. So we don't find very much, you know, that it really matters how we're thinking, because that's what directs our actions of speech and body. And it isn't that we have to stop the way we think, because that takes a to observe the way we think and go and do that pause thing. Maybe I don't want to act on this state of mind. So it doesn't have the power of speech and bodily action. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, say something. So that's one of the major aspects of wisdom we need, is this, you know, we need to examine again and again. And we need to look at our experience and to the best of our ability, you know, kind of go, okay, is this related to that subject? So, yes.
I don't feel like I have any wisdom today. I just felt the need to give this gal over here an apology, because she had your, you know, silver cup and was getting water and talk about cause and effect. I thought she was getting it
For her.
for herself. I didn't think things through. And when she came up and gave you the cup, I just wanted to say that I truly regret not thinking things through. And I'm sorry.
Well, and sometimes, you know, when there's communication and you practice patience and As long as Venerable Timber gets her water.
Yeah, that's all I care about. No, but did you notice, Adrian, that it is? So there you go. And I have a very high and mighty reason, which of course makes no sense once the cup's in use, because, it's already in use. Sort of doesn't matter now. Are you having fun?
Yeah. Not been on center.
Is it not working?
Yeah, no.
Not working.
So if you're more
Is that what you
comfortable
said?
without it.
I'm going to
take
take it off. If it's
Yeah.
not working, this isn't my best look. So I might as well take it off. If I can take it off without strangling
Speak
myself.
loudly.
I do that well.
Okay, good.
So good reason, not, yes.
So in my twenties, life was a real struggle.
Okay.
And at the time, I kept wondering why all this negative things are happening. I knew nothing about karma.
What you want to do is make the aspirational prayer before you die that please may I meet the Dharma sooner in my next life. I pray for that every day. So, we'll have a lot less purification to do if we just would meet it sooner, and understand we say what we think. And it matters for our own future happiness, not to mention it matters to the others around us because we will harm them less, So that's one aspect of ignorance we want to remove. There's cause and effect, obviously, with seeds and sprouts, but there's not really cause and effect with my consciousness, with my, what I'm thinking and then what my actions do. There might be some immediate thing, but there's not any long-term life after life kind of, because the good news about the law of cause and effect is if it's true, and it's certainly true in the physical universe, we see it all the time, it gives us power about our future, It means that by guarding how we think, we're creating the cause for less suffering. And then in the meantime, we need to start developing the wisdom of how things exist, because that's our mistaken is the foundation for all our negative states of mind, our negative speech, our negative actions. And this is the path to actually end cycling through this realization, not just an inferential, not just a mental, well, it is just a mental, but so throw that out, but not just a conceptual understanding of how things exist, but where you've worked with the long, strong, correct understanding of how things exist actually creates the cause for the experience of that. So now you don't have, it's not about you're just using your reasoning, you actually experience the emptiness of phenomena. And all the stuff, the foundation for all our negativities just disappears. Would you like me to turn up the AC? Okay, thank you. No, you can freeze all you want. My understanding is it's wisdom to shiver. So, anyway, but anyway, I'm sorry, I easily distract myself. Okay. So, how things exist. So they talk about truths. There's a conventional truth of phenomena or a relative truth and an ultimate truth of how things exist. Every phenomenon has both truths. Okay. Conventional reality. So the ultimate reality is something that at this moment, if we haven't had a direct perception of emptiness, we don't really get. You know? So nervous. It's a big topic, but it's actually fairly straightforward. It's just not easy to realize. So when we say emptiness, has everybody heard that word bandied about, you know, with Buddhism? Emptiness.
We have some new people today.
Well, I'm very sorry. This subject might just kind of like bore you to death or so, but that's how we all start with it. Welcome to the club. So, Buddha said, and he based this on his experience of deep concentration and then finally penetrating reality, how things exist with his mind. So, and then he explained it to us. And some people got it right away. They became a cycle of existence. Others not so much. You know, I'm still here. So I don't think I was there either. So that takes a lot of merit to be born at the time of a Buddha. And what's happening, Anna?
Hi, Venerable. Sorry, that was supposed to be a message for the Thubten Kunga Ling. I was
Okay,
wondering,
here too.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Are you using your own internet or are you using the Wi-Fi from the center?
The center.
The center. Okay. All right.
Sorry,
It's okay. I'm
So we
sorry
may
for
have-
interrupting.
that's okay.
It's quantum physics.
No, but it's a very interesting thing to compare and contrast. It's not exactly the same thing because the emptiness is not just empty. Okay, it's not just like a place or a thing. What is usually comes with it? What am I meaning?
Nothing's in it.
Nothing's in it, so it's empty of liquid. So that Buddhism uses this phrase the same way. So when it's talking about how things exist, it's saying that things are absent. What does that mean? It means things do not have an inherent nature. I am not inherently tendrent. There's nothing from the side of this body of mine that is tendrent. Tendrent's just a name to the side. But that's not how we think. And a good example of that is I was ordained for a weekend in Wisconsin. I lived in North Carolina, went up to Wisconsin to Geshe Sopa's temple and was ordered a job. So that means I was gone like 2 days, right? So on Friday, I was at the center, you know, as Leslie. And on Monday, I was at the center as Tendron. And let me tell you, the wearing of these robes gives you apparently, suddenly people were asking me questions that I had no knowledge of. And this is how we are. We impute things from, our perception of concepts and objects. I mean, I passed some test that showed I was worthy of these robes. There isn't one. You just have to have refuge and want to benefit all sentient beings, and you don't even have to have a direct realization of wanting to benefit all sentient beings. It can just be a wish. It's not like graduate school or something. It's the beginning of something, not the end. So the Buddha said, our misunderstanding how we exist. We think things have a nature. As a cup, it's because it's a cup, because it has the nature of a cup. Now, intellectually, we understand the materials that make this cup haven't always been a cup. We get that. But once it is a cup, we impute a permanence to it as if it was always a cup. And in fact, when it finally breaks, because I don't know how you break a cup like this, but I'm sure you can. It will become I broke it all anymore, but I will still hold it to be, my broken cup. And the Buddha said, this is where our suffering comes from. This way we grasp at things to have a nature that is permanent, independent, unitary, that it doesn't depend on anything else. So the king of reasons, as they say, that things are empty of inherent existence, it's because everything is independent arising. That the only way things can exist is because they're empty of inherent existence. If things actually were inherently existent, nothing could change. Intellectually, we don't have a problem with this. We all know the cup changes. We know our body changes. What do we do with the eye? Do you think you grasp at anything with the eye? Or do you see yourself as a momentary changing object? And what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
No different, constantly changing and eventually.
I know that's what non-inherent existence is. So what does it mean to have an inherently existent self? Permanency. That's one in the other direction. We think that there's sort of this I or self that kind of hangs out here with this body of mine, but isn't this body and mind, that it's sort of something that we've had since we existed, and that it's kind of unchanged. Yes, we change and our minds change and we grow up and all this kind of stuff, but I have a nature that's tender. And you want to investigate that. You want to start to notice when your mind feels like there is this solid kind, because we don't think about this all the time. But we do think of it when things like the cup gets run over by a truck, and then it's my broken cup. That mind is implying something about. First of all, if it's broken, it's not a cup. What else is it not? It's not mine.
Wise possession.
Yeah, I'm clinging to possession. We do that, possesses our body and mind. My body hurts. My mind is suffering. And the Buddha said the body and mind don't exist like that. There isn't anything separate that is the self, the base for calling it self. So let's use a simpler example. Let's look at a table. Everybody knows what a table is? What's a table?
No,
What is it? You had your hand.
something you put things on.
Right. So usually it has a flat surface, usually has legs. So the flat surface can be flat and hold objects. So what is the flats? What are? They're the parts of the table. They are not the table, are they? Before the carpenter puts the legs on the table, before you know that that's what they're going to be used for, they're just sticks, obviously, you know. But as soon as they become part of the table, we impute on that object a tableness, like it's coming from the side of the table. The Buddha said, if that was true, if tableness was, name it, or we just know what it was. I'm sorry. Well, you need want a label maybe, but it's saying that table would be screaming from it. I mean, you know, it might be tablet.
Oh, no.
But we wouldn't need a name for it because everybody who looked at it would know what it was because it has that nature. And that nature is coming from the side of the object, actually, how we view things. That as soon as, like, we get the label, you know, okay, this is a table. Kids, of course, still have some idea of a function of the table, right? They may be totally wrong about what they learn. You can put things on top of tables. They learn that you don't put your feet on top of tables. You know, they learn all sorts of things about it, and they learn the name table. Well, once we've done that, once we have a sense of an object where we don't confuse the separate objects, we start to superimpose qualities to it that we think are fixed and permanent and da 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 da. We don't think about that it's a dependent arising. We don't think about the fact that we know it and know it intellectually. In fact, children definitely don't know it intellectually. But as you know, as we learn about physics and da 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 da, we learn that these things are produced. Our bodies are produced. Like one to ask yourself when you're meditating on this subject is to ask yourself, when did it become my body? After all, we're made up of half our parents, one half for one parent, one half for the other parent. That's the makeup of our body. That's true. Is it also true that it's reasonable to call it my body? Yes, that's true too. Because conventionally, that's how we communicate, right? You know, to call things certain things, names. And that's why it's called conventional truths, because we agree. The people who use them agree that this is what you call it, and this is what its function is, and this is, you know, blah, 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 blah. Can't be, it isn't actually that's what it's for. An artist may take it and do something entirely different with it. And then it's a part of art. It's not the table anymore. I see a lot of just really interesting expressions on faces at the moment.
So I have a question for you. People that repurpose things have less of a grasp on, like I see things like, you know, on Instagram or something, and I think, oh, I would never have thought to use this for that.
Oh, but then once you have, it's like,
But do you think that people that are able to view things without,
I don't think that's necessarily true. You know, they just may be grasping them in a different way. You know, they may see everything as
Yeah.
potential parts of art. You know, so, you know, I don't know. Like, I love to go through something like Home Goods or something like that and see altar objects. Ooh,
yeah,
that's
well,
nice,
that's-
shiny and sparkly. That might look nice in an altar with lights on it. So, you know, but but those kinds of exercises help put a dent in our, you know, holding tightly to something being, you know, this thing or my thing or whatever. Yep.
With this I am.
Yep.
So the body, the mind,
Mhm.
they're not the I am.
There's a label
It's
called
like-
I. We all have the same label. Gee, that's really interesting.
So is it the aware?
That is what? The I am is just a conceptual construct designed to be able to say something about I. Like, I exist. What do we want to try to investigate? What is that I that we say I am? Because the Buddha says we superimpose something on top of that that isn't there. This idea of in me. So even, and all of us have a me, right? And we all think it has a nature. Where is it? It is just a label. It's just the name we give to this particular collection of body and mind. Is it, we have to look at that. Is it just the mind? You know, we want to start to see, what do we find when we look for it? Do you ever find the I? Because is there any I? Try it out. Is this the I? I know it's not your eye. Is it my eye? Y'all are full of answers.
But if I'm aware that there's the body and the mind, then there has to be something else.
Ah, you see, that's what the Buddha says. No, there doesn't. That's not true. That what we, you know, what the I is literally key label we put on top of this body and mind. The body and mind are the parts of the I. They are not the I. They're the parts of the I, because parts are not the whole.
perspective has something to do with this?
maybe.
Pretender, what goes on?
Okay, we have skipped way over. You know, first we have a life.
Oh, we don't have any of that. And
Nope.
What goes on?
The mental container.
Just not lying though, not lying.
What is the mind?
It's just a series
What?
of happenings.
A series of mental events. No, because that's how mind works. I know. Yeah.
So how do you get the mind to
Oh,
what? you're
so you think it's dictating it? It's not your habit that you've developed over time.
Say that again, please.
So you think your mind is just making it up as it goes and dictating to you what to do? Who created?
Well, I never really thought about that.
Yeah, and that's what we want to think about. Yeah, because in general, we don't think about that. In other spiritual traditions, we have a kind of thing. You have a soul. That's
Right.
part of whatever the teachings say.
But I think when things are happy or light, then they're not thinking that the mind is dictating. It's just like you're being,
You just like what it is.
right?
Right. Yep. What we have to see is just like our body. We all understand the physical nature of our bodies, right? What is it? Changing. And in fact, the fact that it looks solid is not an accurate perception. It's the perception that our eyes can make, you know, that it's somehow solid and separate from this table and da 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 da. But they're all
Water.
besides water. Besides, it's space. Mostly it's space. There's a lot of space.
You just touch solid, but it's solid. But
I wonder, what is it, a cell phone that does not work for a television, does it? It's still a TV?
No.
Cell phone?
So the function of something is really important, isn't it? To qualify as that object. That's why it's kind of hilarious to call something my broken cup. Now, we only think of about it that way when we keep thinking, God, I wish my cup wasn't broken. You know, but then when we replace it, we forget all about it, right? So the body and mind, so what is the body? Okay, it's momentary, it changes, constant changing. It is moment to moment. And science tells us this. That every, you know, and like every part of your body you were not born with. It's not there anymore.
Where'd it go?
It changed into new set, you know, it just turns over.
does our DNA change?
That's the pattern. I think it can, but not in general. Like it's a pattern of how your growth and all these different things, but it doesn't mean it's fixed. We can work with our bodies, just like we can work with our minds. Buddhism would probably say, if the Buddha was here during the DNA discussions, would, you know, might say that we created the cause for a particular DNA. It's a result. Yep.
The DNA side, the telomeres that are on top and stuff to that extent have always been shown. So what you're saying, they will get longer if you do meditate and live much higher life and hence than your expectancy of life. So they can also.
Ta-da! which is non-physical according to Buddhism, also changes moment to moment. And what that means is in every moment, we're brand new. It's not that, I mean, literally in night or arising.
Melissa asked it, who is investigating inside?
That's one of the questions you want to ask. Who is investigating? Is there a who that investigates? See, when we have to develop wisdom, it's not this thing that's just instantly like you get it. You have to investigate it. You have to think, yeah. And then you have to think about, why does it matter? The Buddha, this ignorance, this misapprehension of how things exist, is the foundation of all our negative thoughts, all our negative actions, all our suffering. It's how we get stuck in this cycle of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, because we keep clinging to a self and creating the cause to be born again. The moon doesn't cease. We don't have to keep trading bodies. We don't have to go through a process of death once we understand how we exist. So that's what's in it for us. This is what's needed in order to become liberated from samsara. These two things, our merit, doing our good qualities, developing our good qualities to the point where we have universal love and compassion, all those things. And that we develop the wisdom that understands how we actually exist. In the meantime, we can suffer less by working on our minds and our actions that follow our mind.
How?
By working with our minds, recognizing, looking at, oh, maybe an angry mind's not a present. So maybe I don't want to act on the mind of anger. So I notice, I'm getting angry. Okay, I need to step back, chill out, so that I don't say anything or do anything that harms someone else. So we take the power away from the anger. By letting it just move on, because it will subside. We don't hold on to any state of mind very long. As if anybody who's tried to meditate and quiet the mind knows. The mind's quite busy at work, and it's not, it changes. It's like you almost can't keep up with your thoughts when you're just looking.
So it's the understanding of impermanence.
That is a piece of it. It's not all of it. It's understanding that things couldn't be impermanent if they inherently existed, because that's what is that emptiness is an absence of something. It's not a thing itself. It's a quality of all phenomena. And it doesn't change. I'm not gonna.
I've heard it described also as like when you have you think your cup has water in it and you go to take a sip and it's
Milk.
milk.
Yeah, and you freak out. Because it's empty of water, not really, but instead it's full of milk. I see ideas arising.
That goes with expectation.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So out of the world, when we wake up, what do we expect?
That we're not going to die that day.
Well, that's one thing we expect. Death is not going to happen. What? Well, that's one really
Wow,
ridiculous
we do.
concept. But what did we expect?
You're gonna change. No change.
That's last night, hopefully. You know, I mean, you're not sleepwalking. Don't go down that other road. So, you know, I mean, but the point is, we expect things to be permanent, don't we?
Expect your
People
clothes.
who live in a war zone can't have that luxury.
Yeah, I wake up and I think about what it is.
Yeah. Because all of that stuff's still going to exist, right? And then when it doesn't, when we get that phone call and says, oh, so-and-so was killed in a car accident, and we are shocked. Because we, you know, even Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's our spiritual director, you know, people were shocked, even though that all he talked about pretty much was impermanence and the death is coming and emptiness, you know, was because like he just into a hospital, be sick for a while and die. You know, he was giving a teaching and came home and on the way died. You know, so all his students are shocked. I mean, you know, he's yeah, talk. Do they listen? No. You know, these are clues that we're clinging to something that is impossible. The Buddha says everything, the way things appear to us, it is impossible for them. It isn't that we can't intellectually understand that things are actually impermanent, that things are dependent arisings, you know, but we don't hold that understanding while we're interacting with things, you know. So we know, of course, things break. Is that how we respond when something breaks? No, we kind of go, really? Now you're going to break? You know, we do all sorts of kind of silly notions because we think, like you said, expectations, we can predict. And when this is supposed to last? You know, I've only owned it for 3 years. Is it really supposed to break now? You know, blah, blah, blah. Yes. It's a laptop. Yes. The answer is yes. So we need to start looking at how we think about how things, you know, like this I that's somehow over here that owns this body of mine, you know, and then we need to look, can you find that I? What do you end up finding instead? You know, the parts of the I, moments of mind. One of the problems with language, of course, is that it doesn't, it can interfere. You know, language is just conception that's been given words. You know, it's just, you know, our way of communicating with each other. And it's not as precise as lots and lots and lots of words. You know. But mental continuum, what does that mean to y'all? I mean, if you think about mental continuum, what does that mean?
Thinking the same thing over and over again.
Okay, that makes sense. What the words are saying.
Isn't continuing the continuation? It's just like follow up.
It's like a continuation of something. So the way they describe it sometimes is that, like, if you were to take a candle and light another candle and then another candle, so that flames is individual, right? You know, they are related to each other because they were lit from a flame that came from this candle, right? So that's how the mind is. There's a moment of mind, gone, completely gone. They're related to each other because the cause of each of those moments of mind is the previous moment of your mind. It's not somebody else's. That's why, when we feel like our mind is dictating to us, we've trained it in a certain way, life after life after life. It's life. We developed a habit, when we were younger, and we're still doing it, So continuum doesn't mean it's present in every moment. Okay. And just that continuum is related to the other parts of that continuum.
And those other parts disappear.
They're gone.
They're gone.
As soon as you have a moment of a mental event, the previous mental event's gone.
Mhm.
That's why they say there's 65 of them in a finger snap. Some say it's,
But those moments will leave impressions on their subconscious.
that's why they talk about imprints and seeds, that with every mental event, we're placing a seed on our mental continuum. That's how our habits are formed. Tendencies.
And our memory.
Yep. But you have to be really focused to not forget anything, because it's been replaced by all sorts of new stuff.
And how do you break that continuum? It seems like the one disappears, but then another one takes.
You can't break the continuum. In fact, you wouldn't want to, because that means you'd cease to exist. What you can do is train it in the direction you want it to go. So if you have a habit that quit, like lying to your parents about brushing your teeth before going to school, most of you don't do that anymore, and not just because your mom's not here, but because, hey, you wouldn't go to school without brushing your teeth, so. Okay, so, and then deciding not to do that anymore. And it takes practice sometimes, because we're not so motivated. I want a nice breath for all those attractive people at school. Yeah. Hormones take over everything for a period. So we work with our mind, and just like we work with our bodies, right? Our body's changing literally as we speak. It has changed many times as we speak, but we work with it, don't we? We don't, we give it medicine, we clean it, we give exercise, we do all sorts of things for our body. We train it to be able to do certain things like drive a car, ride a bicycle, all that kind of stuff. But it's changing like this. So, and that's where most of our power is. Like, we can't change the fact that our body ages. That's part of being born in cyclic existence, aging, illness, and death. Excuse me, I need to drink some more. I'm shouting too loud.
I'm trying to understand this.
Good luck.
So karma, if karma is just
Cause and effect.
how come it continues? But the last.
No, all of your mind continues from since beginning this time. When you're a Buddha, you'll remember all that. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? The Buddha said he said he never talked about a first life because he could never find one. That's what beginningless means. Talk about something hard to get your mind around. I know. It is. So we have to just kind of like, okay, we'll understand it someday.
Say that someday.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, because we can't prove it either way. Science keeps kind of supporting this view. It's very interesting. But okay, where was I going with that? Okay, so dependent arising is the king of reasons for the fact that things are empty of inherent existence. What does that mean? There are three types of dependent arisings. That causal dependency, like the seed and the sprout, mutual dependency, and merely labeled dependency. Okay. The word I, the fact that we call ourselves I, that's a merely labeled dependency. We're dependent on, the name is existing, all that kind of stuff. We'll get into that, but just merely labeled means it's merely labeled through language and conception. So like table, table is a merely labeled phenomenon based on like an object that functions to support other objects, that's flat, has legs just support it, being able to support, so we don't have to bend over for everything off the floor, things like that. So those functions, we have all these concepts and we come up with a name for it. So we can recognize that this functions a certain way. Okay. Mutual dependency. Well, first, causal dependency. Since it's easy, we'll go there first.
Thank you.
So causal dependent, and you may have heard the line because it's said a lot. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this arises. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that's, so we know that, when the apple seed exists, it's possible to have an apple tree. Why do I say it's possible?
The conditions to produce.
It's not enough just to have a seed, right? Like you could stare at the seed for the seed is dependent on causes, right? So the seed is a potential cause of an apple tree, but it's also the result of apple trees. Good luck with that. All phenomena, all things, are like that. That they are the result. They are also the effect of future things, like landfills. Landfills, where all our no longer wanted objects go. Or ocean. Or the sky. How many satellites are up there? Like, I don't know, like 30,000 non-working things are floating around. There may be a lot more than that. 30,000 might be just all I can cope with. So this is from what the Buddha observed. It's not just he made this up as he went. As far as we're concerned, he made it up as he went because, we're not there. But that we depend on causes and conditions. Obviously, this body wouldn't be here and what do you call it? Fertilize an egg, and it stayed around. It didn't, it didn't spontaneously disappear or whatever, So if any one of those conditions went wrong, weren't here, yes, this body wouldn't be here. This is why they're different results. You know? The reason have y'all heard of the 12 links of dependent arising? Sure. Oh,
No.
I know. Please stroke me a little bit. The 12 links of dependent arising are what describes the links, cause and effect of how we keep cycling. And, you know, they end with craving and grasping and becoming. So, you know, that when, you know, like just, you know, you're on your deathbed and what are you thinking? Please, can I stay? You know, or I'm going to, you know, we grasp, we crave and grasp, rebirth, whatever, but we're still at that, you know, like it matters to us what happens next, you know, kind of thing. And so that's what, those are the causes and conditions. You still have to have parents if you're going to be born human. That's how human babies come from. That's where they come from. So that also know, which is the intermediate state, searching for your next parents, set of parents. In our middle way Prasangika school, Prasangika just means consequence, I think. Which has to do with debate, so don't even worry about the name. It talks about mutual dependency, which means on the parts depend on the whole. They're mutually dependent that way. Right? What does that mean?
The whole gives meaning to the parts.
They're related, yeah.
Like them.
Would we call the parts of a table if there wasn't a table? Yeah. So the whole and the parts are mutually dependent. You have to have a whole to have parts of the whole.
But you can still have parts and not have the whole.
But there won't be those parts. No.
Just a piece of wood. It's not a part of the table, that's a whole.
Unless you have
It's not a
things,
wood,
something.
it's just a piece of wood.
But it will always be whole in itself because it will always be a piece of wood.
Oh yeah, they were, you know, something else before there were
But then at that
trees.
point, they were whole.
See, this
They
is where
go
we
back to the
grasp.
whole.
But this is where we grasp. We think at some point it was wood,
Just correct.
but that reference is not its nature. You can keep going back and to the parts of that and the parts of that. There are parts of a tree at some point, if we're talking about wood, you know, at some point it's a part of a tree. Before it's a part of a tree, what is it?
Seed.
You sure? Yeah. Trees like that, I don't know. I guess they grow from seeds. So how do you get from seed to wood? Change.
In the defendant.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Magic.
Yeah, that's our other option. The other one is it's magic, you know. So no wonder children grow up with these ideas, you know. Well, it's magic. It's kind of like magic. So, but it isn't magic. It's cause and effect. That's what's beautiful about it. I mean, they'll talk about magic, but becoming enlightened is not magic. It's cause and effect. And we have control over creating the cause for it. Each of us individually have that ability. You know? But we have to do something. Just like the tree is, you know, because something has to happen between the tree and the time it's table legs. You know? And the tree doesn't have to become table legs. It might never be table legs. In fact, the odds are good that maybe not on this planet, but anyway. So we can't have causes without the parts of those causes, you know, and vice versa. And you know, that thing will exist.
This takes us back to dependent rising.
That's what this is. This is a type of dependent rising. What other ways are the fact that things are relative, you know, that's why sometimes it's called relative truth. I'm short because you're tall. I couldn't possibly be short unless somebody else was tall. It doesn't have any meaning. Near and far. Well, you know, well, black and white's two different colors, so I'm not sure about that. Hot and cold. Into
Yin and yang.
and the yin and yang. Okay. That's an interesting example. I wouldn't have come, yeah, I understand that, but I just think it's interesting. I wouldn't have gone to colors. So we know relative things exist. And we all means that things are just relative. And there's a certain aspect, certain quality of not having inherent existence that gives that meaning. Like the fact that I cannot possibly be inherently short. That's not possible. Despite my neck being permanently up.
Permanent.
It is. It's getting worse and worse every year. It's becoming more and more permanent till I'm dead. No, not permanently. It will end. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But the fact that things are empty of having this inherent nature means that all of the things that we talk about being relative can't inherently exist. Like, it's just not possible. That things don't exist. They don't have anything from the side of the object that is it.
Like good and bad.
Like good and bad.
It's only an illusion.
It's like an illusion. It is not an illusion. As soon as there's self, what happens? How does self arise? The concept self.
Rest.
Nope.
What we're taught.
Nope. How, in relation to each other, how does self exist? In relation to what?
Dependent on another.
On other. The only way self exists is because we perceive other, not self. So inherently, it is also dependent on other. Everybody head hurt yet? Okay, now we all need little. So this is the kind of thing, like when you're sitting, if you want to think about ignorance and wisdom and this kind of thing, emptiness, what the hell is emptiness, you know, kind of thing. This is what you look at. Okay, I think things exist dependently, no problem, you know, blah, blah, blah. Then you back, okay, if the tree depends on a seed, what does the seed depend upon? And what it, you know, back and back to the Big Bang. They can relate everything that, you know, that physically that's around today with
In this universe.
in this universe, yes. And only this Big Bang.
Melissa had a question about this. Compassion and wisdom help to realize emptiness and understanding.
Nope. They really don't. The only way that they don't damage this idea of existing the way things appear to. Because where do our good qualities start? Our expression of good qualities like compassion or, you know, love.
What do you mean?
From wanting.
You know, so it's the and those relationships exist within the context of conventional truth, right? Within the context of things appearing as if they exist from their own side, which is why we think, oh, I could never, because they're inherently not appealing. You know, this is, you know, our bias comes from these things, from appearance, from the way things appear to us. Now, clearly, someone I don't find appealing has nothing to do, nothing. In fact, if two people looked at this person and said, they're not appealing, would they be meaning the same thing? No, you know, and we probably couldn't even figure it out until we can read people's minds to find out exactly what's not appealing. And they probably would. That's how layered everything is. I had a point I was going towards. You'd never guess it, would you? Oh, one of my favorite examples on this depends this idea of, because I use this a lot, where there's smoke, there's fire, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so the concept of wood as fuel. What has to exist for wood to be fuel? Because you don't look at the wood of the table as fuel. It's the parts of the table. So it's only in relationship to a wood fire does wood become fuel in our mind. This is all conceptual, you know.
And by heat, air.
All
and
sorts of
source.
things, and a fuel,
Yeah, the source. That's
the direct cause, you know. And has anybody tried to start a fire rubbing two sticks together? Isn't it nice that we have other sources of fuel? Oh. So these are all these kinds of things you can think about to try to kind of just, okay, the way I grasp at things to be is all about language and concepts, and, you know, it's not screaming it from the object itself.
An example of that, they decide the story for the first time when they're adults.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that? It's a table. Well, what is a table? What is it? That's a car.
They have to learn about everything in a whole new way, because now they have this extra perception that they didn't have before. And hearing, I have to admit that I kind of being able to hear their parents for the first time, it's very sweet, but it's also all attachment and blah, blah, blah. So I have to be careful when I watch. So. Now, not all agree with this view. You know, they think there is something from, in fact, all the schools except for the Prasangika school thinks there's something from the side of the object. Something from the side of the object that is how we know it's this or that. So, so when you're reading books about the view of how things exist, be very aware. It really matters whether you're reading a Theravada book or a Mahayana book, because they have different views. So you don't want to get confused. Buddha taught, you know, but it can be confusing if you're reading about how things exist from different viewpoints. That's my warning sign for today.
From the Patel, she asks, how do we live in a world in a community and with a family and practice non-attachment?
Oh, well, yeah, that's hard. You know, it's to me, the only way to really describe that is like good parenting. There's a point at which good parents have to let their children go forth, you know, and make their own mistakes, make their own decisions, all that stuff. And they can still want them to be happy just as much as when they had to actually take care of them. Can't tell them what to do without, you know, it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, parents who don't let their kids become independent of them, you know, not a great look, is it? So in order to develop, we can recognize when we're basing an action or a comment or whatever based on the fact that we're attached to this person. You know, like, can you give me an example of it isn't that we necessarily, in fact, you know, until we realize emptiness, things like anger can arise, things like attachment will arise. But our ability to not listen to those states of mind, to determine how we can train ourselves not to react. And in the same way, like just like a good parent who has to recognize, oh, where am I in this picture? Where am I trying to control the outcome here? Where am I trying, you know, and it's not my life, you know, that all that process can be done in relationships as well. That you're embarrassed by what your partner's wearing to the party, the office party, is all about you, and you need to let that go, you know, because that's just attachment. And, you know, it's not valid as far as, you know. Do you understand?
What do you mean by listening to states of mind? I didn't follow. Understand.
Okay, so when anger arises, you can act on it or not. Most of us act on it at this stage. You know, just be in our head. You should, my mind when I drive, it's not a pretty sight. So, which isn't good, because states of mind like anger and impatience and all those things obscure wisdom. And you get hooked by something, you know, then you miss other things, you know, and then you're the one that other people are going, what is with that driver? So the the key here for relationships isn't, isn't, of course, we live in samsara where, we're in the desire realm, but we can learn to notice when our attachment is obscuring our wisdom, where we can't make good choices. Back choices because, it's clouding your view, And sometimes that attachment for a person, it isn't even about that. It's your attachment, go see this movie, not that movie, or this restaurant, not that restaurant. It's your own attachment to what you like. Same thing about not like, please don't wear that to the party because I'm attached to you looking a certain way and that isn't it. So, it's learning to really notice what's motivating us and trying to rein it in. And not a wholesome, skillful state of mind, that one's just trying to control someone else. Does that help? Maybe. And obviously, we need goodness for attachment, or none of us would be here because our parents would have thrown us out with the trash, on one of those extremely bad days we were having. So. Okay. We're out of time today. This is a big subject. So now we want to think, oh, isn't this fabulous? I'm trying to think about things that the Buddha said actually might get us out of this terrible cycle of suffering. Might take us a long, long time, but hey, we're on the way. But that's vague, that just even the thought that things might not exist the way they appear to us shatters our ordinary view. So, this is what it takes. This is where it starts. So that's kind of cool. It's not an illusion. That's very important. It is like an illusion. Yeah, it's not just an illusion. Someone smacks you in the face, you're going to feel it.
To do with everything being one.
Buddhism doesn't really talk about everything being, are all connected. We're still not one. It's like, okay, we're one of all the sentient beings, but we're a part, we're part of the group of sentient beings. Hopefully one day we'll be a part of the group of the prayers. So now we want to take whatever, curiosity, investigation we're doing with our mind, whatever positive, those have positive results, just even thinking about, how could I look at my mind differently? How could I look at things existing differently? Like the future Dharma results, in fact, because we're talking about, our spiritual path. So that's cool. So now we want to give away the merits so that other people will benefit. So we want to read Shantideva's dedication. Which is on page 246. Is that right? Where is it? So rejoice in your efforts and in everybody else's efforts and all the good stuff that happened elsewhere while we were here. May offerings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Then the long life prayer of His Holiness on page 244. Also, somebody remind me next week where I was trying to go was, and generosity, those things don't help us with wisdom. And we'll talk a little more about that because it's helpful. But I'll forget. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and goods, and Yatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then page 234.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Peerless, the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozan father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the moon through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam and glory for yay, team. All right. So in 2 weeks, is it right? 2 weeks. When is Paula Chichester will be here on Saturday, March 23rd. Does that sound right?
Yes.
It's a Saturday and it's an all-day teaching. She's something else. She 3-year retreats. She's been a student of Rinpoche's and Lama Yeshe's for a long time. And she's, I don't know. She's interesting. So, but she knows a lot. I think she's subject for Westerners that are tough, you know, I mean, just the words, Guru devotion. What do they mean by that? You know, creeped me out the first time I heard it. But she knows what it is because she has it. So it's really, it's so, and she's a layperson. So it's, you know, it's kind of a good experience. Point of view. Does that make sense? So we continue with karma on Thursday nights. And this Venerable Amy's coming in April. So that's a little while away, but don't forget. So,
Chair yoga.
and the chair yoga on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock with this lovely man.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, see you guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Sorry.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye.
thank you,
Bye.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.